How's it going, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Jazz podcast. This week is a very quick one from me, but I wanted to go over that. I went to an event last weekend. For those who have listened to the podcast, I had Rory Macdonald on a few weeks ago, and a brilliant guest and a brilliant person. If you listen to that podcast, you would have heard that he invited me to his How to Be a Man event, Man Defined. And that was down in London, and I managed to move some things around, and despite some rail strikes and some difficulty getting there, I made the effort to get down. And today I want to go over that experience, that event, and essentially share some feedback of the amazing time that I had down there for many reasons, and I'll get into some of them. So the How to Be a Man event is a concept that I hold very closely to my heart. Something that has been an idea of myself and a good friend of mine and a colleague of mine to implement into the place that we work, is to create a community for men to improve their well-being and understand themselves more, be more okay with who they are as individuals and not live up to the expectations of society and what that may be. And as soon as I saw Rory and what he promotes and his business and what he does, he was a must-have for me on the podcast. So I obviously contacted him, chased him down a little bit, and he finally came on, and he was brilliant. And I loved that conversation, and it is one of my favourite podcasts to date. And then he invited me down. Again, it was a no-brainer. I was willing to move, heaven and earth to get there. So it was in London. It was down in Until, which honestly is an amazing facility, an amazing concept of a business and what it does. And hopefully very soon we'll have some people on from Until who can explain what it is and what it stands for and the idea behind it and the concept, because the facility is probably world class. And I mean, the instructors and the people that work out of there are definitely the same. So being there, first and foremost, was an amazing experience and very sort of, I was nervous for it. It was the first time that anything has come from the podcast that, I've not really been in control of. That sounds strange, but when I'm obviously doing the podcast and arranging the podcast and editing the podcast, it's something that I do myself. I've never had to go somewhere or do anything where I'm representing myself as a brand or, just sort of going off the back of this, which was really nice and also nervy. It's probably the first time that I've felt anxious about going to these things. And for those who know me, I'm quite social and I don't shy away from meeting new people or talking to people, but I do remember feeling very anxious about it. And I don't know why. There was definitely no reason. As soon as I got through the door and, I met the group of men that we was doing this event with, immediately all that washed away. The people that were there, the community in which it had was brilliant. Yeah, I don't even want to call it networking. I want to say sort of the friendships and the relationships that were made that day felt very true and very honest. And it was nice to be in a room where everyone has the same, maybe not the same idea, but definitely the same interests and maybe the same end goal in mind. There was people there who probably had never reflected on themselves before or well-being. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm assuming that was the case. And I went in and, I'll get into some of the stuff that we did without giving too much spoilers away, because I know Rory won't want me to, give away his magic recipe and Danny. But, it was a really sort of wholesome thing. And I think with men, that can obviously be seen as, not manly and not masculine, but, it was very apparent straight off the bat that it was a supportive and an engaging environment. So fair play to Until, Danny and Rory for, doing that. And then the day sort of went as follows. So we obviously all met, we had a little talk with each other. And then Danny and Rory introduced themselves. They were joined by Will as well, who was helping with the first part, which was the testing. So we did some testing, some, physical activity, things like that. Some benchmarking, I probably would be the best terminology to use. And that was great. That was really where I believe the sort of the relationship was formed. It was a supportive, slightly competitive environment, which is exactly what you want, but there was no egos there. There was no one sort of, big dick swinging, peacocking. It was very much like, I want to fucking do well, but I also want you to do well. And that was brilliant. And it really set the tone for the day. And then, we had a little break. We did some testing. We got our body compositions tested, and again, in a world-class facility with some brilliant equipment led by Danny and Will. And I mean, to see their expertise and their knowledge firsthand was, again, just a massive caveat to what the day was and sort of the product that they put on. And, it taught me a lot, gave me a lot of insight and a lot of realisation. And that was, obviously, I have a background in personal training, fitness and exercise, but to speak to people who are so many more levels above you and to take that in and get their perspective of things was, refreshing for me and motivating. Again, the day was definitely motivating. But then after the testing, we had a little break again, good conversation all day, and then we went into the theory, which what Rory led, and the premise and the concept of what How to Be a Man was, and to listen to Rory's background and some of the personal antidotes that he shared and the concepts and the theories which he's obviously, painstakingly researched, applied to himself, applied to his clients, and then created this program to share with others and show them these foundations. And he said something that really stuck with me, that none of the theories in which he shared with us or the concepts were complex. However, doing it yourself and making sure that they happen is what the complex part is. The difficulty comes in the application, and that's so true. It's so true for everything we do. Like today, I didn't want to do this podcast. I mean, I did want to do it, but I was putting it off. I was sort of, finding excuses. And in premise, just to sit down and speak to a camera and chat shit for 15 minutes isn't difficult, but actually doing it and then the things that follow are what complex. So to listen to that, it sort of rang true and has been burning in my mind since, that you've just got to apply yourself. You've got to apply to these concepts or these theories or these structures that you put in place and stick to them and dance along the variables. And then we sort of went through there and did some exercises again. Fantastic to see these firsthand and experience them. The sort of theories and the things that he wrote about and talked about was that, I'm not going to go into them. Sorry, I've just been joined by, come here. Oh, the dog ran off. So the theories that he talked about were really good, and I've actually gone on to have a little bit of a read and a bit more of a research into it myself. But when we did the exercises, to put them into application and to sit and to almost have a goal onto reflecting on yourself, like the year, your goals, reverse engineering them, it was just so refreshing and brilliant. And the time that we was given was, perfect to just sit and reminisce, because even if you sat back and, you just watched other people doing what you should have been doing, you almost felt an accountability not to rush your answers and not to do these things. So that was another interesting insight, is that sometimes I found myself rushing through these things, not rushing, but feeling like I knew answers and feeling like I knew what I wanted. And then I'd see others around me still working quite hard. And then I would be like, oh shit, should I have another think about this? And I was talking to Rory on the day about it, about sort of recency bias. And that's a massive thing. And another thing I've taken away from that is, when you are reflecting, you've got to really tune in. You can't just take the first thing that comes into your mind, which is something that I've definitely done in the past. And a skill that I learned from this and that I will take forward is that although you're looking for something, just because it comes to mind first doesn't necessarily mean that that is the thing you're looking for. It might be in some cases, but you've got to take that time. And then, we talked about journaling and the power of that, and something that I'm holding myself to, and a part of the challenge that Rory set and Danny set and goals that we had is for me is to get back into journaling and to hold myself accountable and to reflect more about what I'm doing, set myself goals. So yeah, I learned so much from that. And then when we started talking about vision and the discovery of vision, it's sort of hand in hand with what I just said, mindset and belief systems. To hear these things were just to see almost the science and the literature behind it, and in the way that Rory delivered it was engaging. It was on a level in which I think men need. Sometimes we dance this line of, you've got this resilience and discipline of like your Goggins and your Cam Hanes and this, and it's fucking drilled into you. And then you got your other side of that. I can't really give you any examples, but sort of where it's, don't worry about it, just take the path of least resistance. But it's walking that line. And then there was a great diagram, which I won't go into too much, but it was a guy walking the tightrope, and you can fall either way and go into these different paths and end up at these different goals just through sort of walking along and not having them internal skills and them foundations set to deal with not falling off the tightrope into one way or falling off into the other, and learning how to readjust yourself. So yeah, we did a lot of that, and it was tiring. I found by the end of the day, I was sort of drained. Not because of the event. The event was really, really sort of motivating, engaging, but it had been the first time maybe ever that I'd sat down and reflected so intently and so much. So yeah, that was an eye opener for me, how much it does sort of burn you up, like getting into it and unbuttoning these things and really thinking forward and thinking back. So then the final things that we covered was when we did the testing in the morning and we did the body composition things. Danny led us through a metabolic mastery session, which is brilliant, and sort of I'm looking into the book now to sort of give myself some inspiration so I don't miss anything. But we talked about different things, and one of the things that we talked about was Peter Attia's book, Outlive, and sort of the concepts in that about like VO2 max and strength. And that's a book that I've just started reading, so we'll do a review of that later down the line. But, scary shit, like things that, make perfect sense once you hear them, but you don't necessarily get drip fed this information. So to have it and listen to it from someone who, his profession is around that sort of stuff was really insightful, and also a kick up the arse to improve these certain things that you might take for granted. And we talked about sort of having different ideas of what we want to do, but we might exercise for looking good and doing this and doing that, but what are the seeds of that tree? This was sort of the concept that we pictured. And again, I don't want to give too much away, I don't want to tell magicians secrets, but it was really good to think about what fuels them goals, what we want, and making sure that we're hitting them to do that. Because a lot of the time we're thinking about the end product and not putting the time and the energy into what makes the end product. And again, that really opened my eyes and has given me something to think about moving forward. So yeah, and then we went to habits for success, obviously something that is a massive part of why I love and why I do this podcast, and that was just a brilliant section again. And then we finished with talking about the challenge and moving forward, because I think a lot of these things, me and my friend Sam, who have discussed about creating, something similar in different avenues and things like that, is that a lot of these things are experiences, and you leave motivated, but how long does that last? You do it on Sunday like I did, but by Tuesday you're still back in your old habits. And that's where I think the 80-man challenge, what Rory and Danny created, is a really good accountability tool for people to stick in and move forward. So you should definitely check that out with them. You should definitely check out this event if it's anywhere that's near you or you can access it. I would highly, highly recommend it. I'm so glad that I went. I feel very fortunate for the opportunity to be invited down and experience it firsthand, and to see someone see people, Danny and Rory, who are clearly passionate about this avenue of the work and where they want, to take this, and the message that they're delivering. It's very refreshing, and it's definitely, definitely needed. A lot of people can look at it one way negatively or another way negatively. You can be sort of looking from either end of that spectrum, but it's something that society is probably crying out for, and that's why, it was a very wholesome, refreshing, motivating, insightful day for me. And I'm trying to not sort of blow smoke up Danny and Rory's arse too much. Yeah, I remember sending a message at the end of the day when I was on my way home. When you sat on a National Express for 5.5 hours, you got a lot of time to reflect on these things. But yeah, it was a brilliant day, and I'm looking forward to speaking to Rory and Danny and people from who we met at the day in the future, hopefully keeping in touch and hopefully doing something like that again. But a massive thank you to Until, Rory, Danny. I'll put the information down below. Hopefully we'll have some content to share about the day as well. Some sort of snippets of what happened, some filming of what went on. You can see me dying doing a video test on a rower, which was fucking rough but very enjoyable. But yeah, brilliant group of men led by some brilliant men themselves in a fantastic facility in what I hope and will be, something that is prominent in society coming forward, something that we see a lot more of this concept and what's delivered in it, because it's definitely something that all men should learn to do, is how to be a man and define themselves by what they want, their purpose, and not keep on this hedonic treadmill and this pursuit of power and money, the external and materialistic things that are obviously forced down our necks in society. So can't recommend it enough. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, something a little different, more of an insight into my life. Thank you again, Danny, Rory, Until, and shout out to the sponsor, Verba Strength. Check them out. Use Average Jack at checkout at www.veribastrength.co.uk. That's Average Jack at www.veribastrength.co.uk. Link will be in the description. And head over to my website, www.jackmcKeenan.co.uk, and check it out. But I'll leave you with it. Have a nice week. Go and take the week by storm. Set some goals. See what you want to do. Go and smash it. Peace.